This is the next follow-up video on ghosts. Now, we're gonna define ghosts differently. I just talked in the last video on spiritual beings that don't require bodies, or haven't even had a body sometimes. We often call them angels, and demons for the rebellious ones. But these spiritual beings, angel is a mission or a job. It just means messenger. These spiritual beings could do many different things, but none of them require a body. Ghosts are often thought of as humans that have lost their body and now are disembodied and this is important because we don't call people in heaven ghosts. The ghosts typically are also defined by the fact that they are sticking around in some sense. This concept comes more from ancestral religions, where they worship the spirits of their ancestors because they think that they're still here in some sense, or at the very least able to interact with the world on their behalf, or have become deified in some sense. None of those seem to be biblical concepts. In fact, the biblical understanding of what happens to a person after they die is that shortly after death, when you're like dead, like not just you just died, everything's stopping, now like you've been dead for days, now you're gonna go where you need to go. Like if you're not coming back to life, you're not going to heaven, or you're not going to wherever you're gonna go, the waiting place, until that point. People usually experience near-death experiences at this point, where they're dead, but they haven't actually gone, or maybe they have gone, or at least have been shown visions of different places in the afterlife, supposedly. There are other kinds of near-death experiences that are actually very interesting, where they gain new information or knowledge that they wouldn't have if they were inside their physical body. Those are more verifiable than the ones going to heaven or hell. But the Bible has an understanding of the afterlife where you go and you wait. You go to a waiting place. For the righteous, it's called Abraham's bosom or paradise. For the wicked, it's Gehenna, the trash heap. It's Hades, Sheol. Sometimes in the Old Testament, Sheol is where they thought everybody would go. But as they learned more about who God is, and they expressed hope in God to discern between the righteous and the wicked, they understood that Sheol has divisions of paradise for the righteous, and comfort for the righteous, and torment for the wicked until the day of judgment. And that's where they're held till Judgment Day. Similarly to the angels that God keeps in prison. People don't roam around the world. It's only seemingly in rare cases that people can make contact with the world again. Samuel comes back in contact after God allows him to tell Saul that he shouldn't have been doing what he was doing in the first place by contacting spirits. I do think it's possible that God commanded against contacting spirits because doing that is in some sense possible, and you're disturbing them in their resting places, because Samuel says, "Why have you disturbed my rest?" in their waiting place. But no, they're not normally moving around. God forbids contacting spirits, probably for a good reason. A, you can get spiritual interference from demonic sources trying to deceive you. And B, and this is probably why, people genuinely think that contacting a spirit gives them access back into the world in some sense. It doesn't remove them from their waiting place, but it does make them active again. And God does not want us reaching out to any source, demonic or ghostly, whatever you want to call it, of power, except through Him. He's our source of power, especially in the spiritual realm. Not ghosts, the bodies of dead people. So if you hear or see of anyone who says, oh, I heard my mother do this for me, I'm like, no, unless A, you're trying to directly contact a spirit, which is against the Bible, then you ain't hearing from no one except demons. And if you do contact your grandmother, I'd press D for doubt that it could be a demon. And even if it was your grandmother ain't going to be telling you anything different that the Bible doesn't be telling you. Except maybe a few things. Oh, it's so good here. Or, man, it's really bad here. Depending on which waiting place they're in. Like, even if you could contact them and get some info from them. And if your people contact them for comfort, your comfort's supposed to be in the Lord. That person is not being dead and in the waiting place ain't going to give you any comfort. It's just not. Even if you could talk to them. If you trust the Lord, He's your comfort. And He explicitly said, as the creator of the universe and of the afterlife for humans, not to try to contact people who are dead. And that's the only time it seems anyone from the other side could even potentially talk to you, given Samuel's case. Samuel ain't up contacting people by himself. Someone tried to contact him through occult means. So let's avoid that and turn to the Lord for our source of trust. And avoid all speculation on what signs that people are trying to give you from the afterlife. Because even if they are somehow helping, it's only because of God that they can help you in the first place. So trust in Him and attribute it to God before you attribute it to any sort of other spiritual being. Love you guys. Bye.